In the 1980s, one man went from being the most exciting player in basketball to being called tragic by his own peers. Today, we're telling the real story of the rivalry that built the modern NBA, Larry Bird versus Magic Johnson.
We started calling him Tragic Johnson as opposed to Magic.
To understand this rivalry, you have to understand the era. This wasn't today's NBA. There was no load management, no private jets pampering stars, no air conditioning in half the arenas. Basketball in the late 70s and early 80s was rough, physical, and unforgiving. The league itself was struggling. Ratings were down. Games were being shown on tape delay. And then two rookies walked into the league in the same year. One from Indiana State, one from Michigan State, and everything changed. Larry Bird, a small-town kid with ice in his veins, a shooting touch nobody could explain, and a mouth that talked as much trash as his game backed up. Magic Johnson, 6 feet 9 inches, playing point guard like no one had ever seen, smiling through every highlight, making the impossible look effortless. They'd already battled once. In the 1979 NCAA championship game, Magic's Michigan State beating Bird's Indiana State in what's still one of the most watched college basketball games ever. That loss stayed with Bird. And when both men entered the NBA that same year, the rivalry didn't start, it just moved to a bigger stage. 4 years, the two men pushed each other from a distance. Different conferences, different coasts, meeting only in the finals. And in those finals, there was a moment that changed how people saw Magic Johnson forever. It happened late in a close game. The kind of moment where legends are made or broken. Magic, known for never making mistakes in the clutch, threw the ball away at the worst possible time.
For him to have a pass intercepted.
It was such a shock that people around the league started calling him something else entirely. Not Magic, but Tragic. Some even called him fake, accusing him of being all smile and no substance. For a player who had built his entire reputation on being smooth under pressure, this was the first real crack anyone had seen. But here's the thing about great rivalries. The pressure doesn't stay one-sided for long. Segment 3. Things almost got physical. Magic didn't take the criticism quietly. During one game, tensions boiled over on the sideline, and Magic reportedly got so heated with an opposing player that he threatened to cross the line, literally, and start a fight, right there in front of the crowd.
So he made us all
It never
come
actually
downstairs,
happened.
get out
But the
hotel.
fact that it
And we all
almost
said,
did
"This is
tells
nothing
you
but red
everything
out
about
back."
how personal this rivalry had become. This wasn't just two great players competing. This was pride, ego, and years of frustration all boiling under the surface. And then came the moment everyone still talks about. Boston, a tied game, seconds on the clock. Everyone in the building knew the ball was going to Bird, and it didn't matter. That's the thing about truly elite competitors. You can know exactly what's coming and still not be able to stop it. The play unfolded almost in slow motion. A steal, a scramble, and Bird, reading the entire floor like he'd seen it happen 100 times before, made the play that decided the game.
Larry showed everybody how a superstar does it with the game on the line.
Larry Bird seizes the moment.
Some people, sitting on the losing side, would later call it luck.
Lucky.
Maybe. But great players have a habit of being lucky at exactly the right moment. One of Bird's opponents that night admitted afterward, the tougher the game got, the better Bird seemed to play. That wasn't luck. That was a killer instinct that very few players in NBA history have ever had. What a lot of fans don't realize is how personal these matchups were for the players involved. Not just Bird and Magic, but their teammates too. Several players on both benches had faced off in college years earlier, and old wounds from those days followed them straight into the pros. Every Celtics-Lakers game wasn't just about the championship, it was about redemption for battles fought long before either team had drafted them. Which brings us to the question that has never actually been settled. Who was better, Bird or Magic? It's been debated in locker rooms, sports bars, and now comment sections for over 40 years. And here's what's interesting, even people who play the exact same style tend to land on Bird. Here's why. Physically, the two men were almost mirror images of each other. Neither was especially fast. Neither was a leaper. Both were exceptionally tall for their position, and both had basketball IQs that bordered on unfair. But Bird had one separator that Magic never fully matched. A jump shot that extended all the way to the three-point line, at a time when almost nobody was shooting from that range consistently.
They were pretty much the same size.
Yeah.
They were both slow, but Bird, that outside, I gotta give the edge to Bird, man.
And it's not just retired players who feel this way. Even current NBA stars, some who won't say it publicly, have quietly admitted they lean toward Bird when this debate comes up. Magic, of course, has his own case. He won more championships in the years after Bird's body started breaking down. He redefined what a point guard could be, a 6 feet 9 inches player who could bring the ball up, run an offense, and still dominate as a scorer. Showtime, Lakers basketball became a global brand partly because of him. But at their absolute peak, head-to-head, no injuries, no decline, most of the men who actually played against both of them still give the slight edge to Bird.
But at their best, Bird consistently was considered the better player.
But if you really want to understand what this era was like, you have to hear what life on the road actually looked like, because it had nothing to do with luxury. Visiting teams in Boston have talked for decades about the old Boston Garden Hotel conditions, service elevators with rats and roaches, players getting woken up in the middle of the night, entire teams being pulled out of their rooms because conditions were so bad. This wasn't a pampered, private jet era. Players earning a fraction of today's salaries were grinding through genuinely rough travel conditions, then walking onto the court the next night to play some of the most memorable games in NBA history.
We go to Boston, had rat.
Bird and Magic didn't just compete against each other. They saved the NBA and turned it into the league we know today. No air conditioning. No rest. No mercy. Just two of the most competitive human beings the sport has ever produced, pushing each other to be great because neither one was willing to lose. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to subscribe. Next week we're going even deeper into stories the NBA doesn't talk about enough. And drop a comment below, Bird or Magic? Who do you think was really better? Let's settle it down there.